Bravo 6 to what you want. Position at the cafe. 2 to table to my 3 o'clock. 1 cartel, 1 Iranian.
How cozy. What are they up to?
Conducting a transaction.
Electronically.
Affirm.
So the Modern Warfare 2 campaign is quite exciting for people like me who basically play COD for the campaign and then forget about it because I'm just terrible at anything that involves competition or skill. But it's looking great. We've all seen the Amsterdam footage that's doing the rounds, but you guys have played through the whole thing. I just want to talk first of all about like how it's looking visually, because from what I've seen, it looks phenomenally like properly photorealistic in a way that like kind of raises the bar once again.
Yeah, so I played on PS5 and I'm pretty sure Sharif played on PC.
Yeah.
So you're going to have like the best experience in terms of what this game can actually pull off on brilliant hardware. From my experience, yeah, it looked really great. The Amsterdam level, as you mentioned, is the obvious standout.
Yeah.
People comparing it to real life and that sort of thing. But I was kind of really impressed by a lot of the water missions when you're either out in the ocean by like an oil rig, as was shown in the gameplay trailer ages ago at State of Play, or if you're like stealthily moving around the docks in like I think Amsterdam as well. There's like a in water mission at night. It looks brilliant. The game does a really good job at taking you all around the place, all around the world, without giving away specific places you are in the world apart from Amsterdam. Mm-hmm. There's a nice variety of like times of day, nice variety of like urban and non-urban environments you sneak around or rush through.
It's a bit of a jet-setting campaign, the kind of thing that we're used to. Sharif, in terms of the narrative, this presumably picks up from the plot of the previous game, which was, I mean, let's be careful here, but it basically involved a proxy war with Russia on the occupied territory of a former member of the Soviet Union, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, that's right.
So I take it they've had to be a bit careful this time round.
They have been so careful this time that they do not follow up the events of the first game at all.
Wow. Okay.
They have been. They if you did not play the first, when I say the first, I mean the reboot, the 2019 Modern Warfare. I don't mean Call of Duty 1. But yeah, they do not. In fact, the protagonist of that first game, shows up exactly once in this sequel, which is fascinating to me. So they do not follow up the events. They only. I mentioned this in my review of the campaign, but they basically there has been a change of leadership at Infinity Ward, specifically the narrative and campaign leads. They left to do a new studio. So basically, I feel like the current people who were left with that sort of new Call of Duty were given this effectively toolbox of these characters and these locations and these factions. But then what they then ended up doing with it is completely different from that game. I feel like there was no mandate to follow up that story. So as a result of that, you have a very standard Call of Duty story that barely touches on what happens in that first game, which isn't to say that it's not fun or interesting, but it is a more traditional Call of Duty story compared to 2019, which was a very bold, albeit unsuccessful, kind of new treading of themes and of tackling of subjects that Call of Duty traditionally does not do. This is a more standard, like rah, we're going to get the bad guy, let's go hop around the globe, inexplicably in all these countries so that we can change the scenery. And then get a bad guy who's a brown dude who speaks Arabic. Like you have all the slots, lined up here. Where the first game was like, oh, let's actually do who's an enemy, who's not an enemy, is an enemy combatant, like all that stuff of like all these questions. It really just falters at the end, but I would still applaud the effort. This one is not even like, no, it's just like, hey, bam, bam.
Call of Duty campaigns tend to like to focus on a big thing that's bad about war. Like you said, Modern Warfare 2019 was all about, who's an enemy, that sort of thing. This game, not to spoil everything, but, it's like private military companies, the war on terror, the war on drugs. It's like, it tries to push all this into this campaign in, like you said, like this sort of like world hopping, like all around the world, big adventure sort of military event like story, but it doesn't really, in my opinion, give those topics the focus they deserve.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it doesn't say anything, unfortunately.
That's interesting because the idea that like the first game was about not knowing who the enemy was, and that is modern warfare in a nutshell, isn't it? It's like it's not clear cut who the baddie is. It's not like the Second World War. Everything's a proxy conflict about something else.
A combatant could be someone walking with like a bomb strapped to their chest, who kills hundreds of civilians, but you can't anticipate this. Like you're not looking at you're not at a war anticipating this kind of stuff, so it just happens. So who do you round up and question at that point? You're just going to go after civilians who are secretly embedded in weird terrorist organizations. Again, interesting concept, poorly executed in a lot of ways, but interesting idea to tackle in a Call of Duty. This one is just straight up guns blazing.
And then, so the first game had an interesting concept that is basically abandoned by the sequel. Yeah. Just concentrating on this game then, it's more of a Jerry Bruckheimer blockbuster event game then. It's gone back to those roots of like, we're not really trying to say much here, apart from we might pay a little bit of lip service to war is bad, but it's just about shooting guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think actually on the subject of spectacle, I want to say it is the least spectacular Call of Duty game in that sense. I honestly cannot think of like more than one or two big spectacle moments in the same way that what you think of as a spectacle moment in a Call of Duty campaign. It is. I feel like it's more personal. Like the spectacle, or like, I guess the flexing this time around is how varied the mission are, how bold the choices that they make in purely gameplay terms. And the sort of experiences that you don't expect to see in a Call of Duty that this game does and often delivers on very well. I think this is the sort of the spectacle of this game is that you don't expect what's going to happen, but not in a sense of like, oh, this guy has been a bad guy all along. No, but you don't expect, like, you see a mission starting, like, oh, I've seen this before. It's all gillied up again. But then the game is like, actually, this is only the first 5 minutes of this mission. The rest of this mission is nothing you have ever seen before in a Call of Duty game. And this is what I actually love about it and ended up enjoying more about anything else that it does with the narrative.
I mean, it certainly kept me like wondering what's coming up next. Gameplay wise, it was quite enticing that way. You're totally right. I do wish it had a bit more bombast though.
And that's surprising to me that it's light on bombast. Is it similar to sort of like the difference between the original God of War and the new God of War, which is all about sort of introspection and being a dad and all those personal moments, and the original game is about like chopping the head off a hydra in the middle of like the Mediterranean. Like it's such a more micro focus, and it might reflect like just a larger shift in games in general, where like it's an understanding that often like a lot of the more impactful stuff is actually about character and what characters do, rather than like bridges getting blown up and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think this is a really good comparison because this is a significantly more conversationalist game. There is, in fact, a dialogue tree that you get quite often in a bunch of these missions, because the missions are long enough and there's a lot of quiet time that you're talking to a couple people on the radio that you got into the mission with. And it's like, oh, there are multiple choices. And having played through these missions repeatedly, I can tell you that they recorded a bunch of like branching options depending on the choice that you make, which are all fairly consequential in the grand scheme, but offer a lot of insight into their characters, the characters that you're speaking with, and add a lot of flavor. There's an entire mission where Soap is talking to Ghost, and it ends up being this sort of bromance. They have a really good rapport between Soap and in that mission specifically. And I don't think I honestly cannot remember a Call of Duty mission that had this deep of a relationship between two characters who are not in fact in the same scene together, but are just chatting over the radio. Yeah. And I found it fascinating.
That is fascinating. Has dialogue trees ever happened in Call of Duty before?
Yes. Black Ops Cold War was, I think, the first one to do that. But again, it was all at the safe house, so it was all at the neutral kind of...
Yeah.
Where this is like, you just on the radio with someone in the mission being shot at, and then someone is like cracking wise, and you're like replying, and then they're flipping it. I found it,
It's legit like
I love that.
It's like the latest, biggest, like best sort of like friendship moment in Call of Duty since that robot from Call of Duty
Infinite Warfare, yeah.
Warfare.
Which is also Infinity Ward.
It's that sort of quality. Like you actually genuinely care about them both, which is brilliant. I mean,
that's amazing. I love that. It's really making me like very eager to get stuck into this campaign.
Yeah, there's a lot of Last of Us and Naughty Dog lineage in this, even more so than 2019. Like this mission specifically that I was just talking about has a lot of scavenging, and it's very non-linear in that you're going through houses. You're not really supposed to follow a specific route. You're just scavenging, you're crafting on the field, which is another mechanic that's in this game that has been kept completely secret, which I love. So there's a lot of Last of Us lineage in this that is surprising, and not just in like how well directed the cutscenes are, but no, in the gameplay of like, oh, we're just going to leave you like, yes, this is linear, but it's wider in a sense that you can feel this illusion of like, oh, what am I doing? And in fact, in that mission that I'm talking about, I did not unlock some crafting options because I didn't come up with the components. And I was watching someone else play, and I was like, "Oh, you can do this in this mission," which has never happened in a Call of Duty before. Because it's point and shoot.
I mean, usually like in Call of Duty, like everyone save at like level 11, they're going to have all the same gear and all. Like, they'll have had basically the exact same experience up to that point. So the fact that that's not true for this game is really fascinating. I think it speaks to how Call of Duty. I've always felt that Call of Duty campaigns are snapshots of where just the entire medium is at that point. You know, and what we're focused on, the kinds of things that you can get away with doing that you can't at any other time. You know, like what's possible, what's acceptable. Once again, a really fascinating thing from a really fascinating game from Infinity Ward that I feel like moves the medium forward in some ways, and then in other ways just absolutely does not.
I love what you said about the snapshot though, especially of this game, because you can make a direct comparison between this and, of course, the original Modern Warfare 2 ages ago, and if, you know how much sort of the series has changed in terms of getting across emotional moments and making an entertaining first-person shooter, which is trying to also say something about how modern war is a bit shit in different ways.
There are several missions in this that are different when you go through them multiple times, and they're designed in that way. And I think you're going to, get a lot more enjoyment out of it than in most Call of Duty games because of just how unexpected things could twist and turn, and the openness of some of these missions. That it's just a pleasure to honestly play. And I want Infinity Ward to make like a proper RPG, like a systems-driven stalker almost kind of thing. Because they have demonstrated that they have like this. If this game tells me anything, it's that this is their pitch for let's just make like a single player game that is like 40 hours of you just dicking around an open zone, crafting shit on the go and like changing tactics on the fly. I love the idea of that.
It's made me really excited for the next Modern Warfare game, which while Modern Warfare 2019 was really great, I was kind of like, okay, that's fine. And then in terms of the story, I wasn't personally super like hyped about Modern Warfare 2, but now seeing what they've done with the game in terms of like crafting and like voicing and like mission diversity and how they've mixed things up and what they're doing narratively, it has kind of made me curious as to what they're going to do next in a lot of ways. If you've just bought the game for multiplayer, if you're 13 years old, don't be a loser. Play the campaign. It's really good.
If you're 13 years old, first of all, you should not be playing Call of Duty.
Oh, they're playing anyway.
I will call the cops on you if you do that. I'll get you to
we just point out that VG247 is supports the rating system, whichever territory you're in. But I think this is like really fascinating about where they're taking it. And Sharif, you might get your wish for a Modern Warfare 3. They might. I mean, we know that video games have got previous in like just changing genres at the third game, right? This has happened before. Red Faction did it. Why can't anything else? I mean, why can't the next Modern Warfare basically be like Infinity Ward's equivalent of Fallout? Bring it on.
Oh god, that sounds like that sounds amazing, and I feel like it's good enough to deserve its own separate game away from like the confines of Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And so the reports suggest there's going to be campaign DLC next year in place of a full-fledged new Call of Duty. And this idea, like, if you're going to continue on from that campaign and give me more of that, refined even further, like, that sounds awesome. Like, I don't care about multiplayer maps coming next year. I think I want to play this. Yeah, it sounds amazing.
Fall back this way!
Tommy's right behind us!
Copiado. Avanzando.
Down the hill! We'll lose them in the mountains! Run out and stay close!
La antigua ruta.
Straight to the bridge!
Like and subscribe and all that, I mean, if you want, I'm not your mum. And check out the weekly VG 24/7 Best Games Ever podcast if you quite like listening to people mugging off their boss. I should probably stop doing that, actually.